If you went up to a rock band and said, I'll give you $10,000 flat just to use this sample in my record, nobody knows about masters. Nobody knows about publishing. Here's 10 grand. Here's 20 grand up front. Sign this. They sign it and that's done.
So we had the incredibly rare opportunity to interview a legendary rapper, Young MC. I know you know Young MC. I know you know his hit song Bust a Move. I know you know the hit songs that he's written, including Wild Thing and Not That Kind by Anastasia. That's a more modern track. And of course, I wanted to ask about sample clearance, how sample clearance worked in the 80s before the sample clearance laws and protocols that we know today existed. I wanted to ask about working with producers back in the 80s versus now. I mean, did beats inspire rappers even then? Or was there some kind of different situation in terms of the creative process? And the sample clearance stories that he had to tell, which was basically just kind of like being in a dark alley and putting some money in a bag, crazy. Now, you'll notice this is not the full episode of the podcast. The podcast has been rebranded and it's moved to its own channel. So I will continue to post producer-specific clips from the podcast, but the full episode is linked below, so watch that. Now enjoy. You do not want to miss this. Watch the full interview when you get a moment. And yes, you can still get free music distribution on tolost.com with the code @odds.
I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with an artist named Anastasia. Anastasia came out, so I wrote the title track to her debut album, Not That Kind. So I have a bigger piece of that than I have a Bust a Move. Publishing the whole 9 yards. There's a one record that I did the track on that I got, credit for the track. That record showed me, what was possible, what could happen. But I had pulling the curtain, I had a $300,000 publishing year that year, like $300,000 just from and it was mainly, and Bust a Move was still, relevant, but the vast majority of it was that deal. My lawyer came to me and said, I just got this other legacy artist $1 million for his publishing. Do you want $1 million? And that's where my college degree comes in. I say no, because you just do the straight amortization. And at 300,000, $300,000 in 1 year, just a regular sunset, I'm going to see $1 million in 5-6 years and keep everything. So that's what I did. And then to your point about the college degree, what it did was it allowed me to sit across from people and they would know that I was as educated as they were, so they weren't going to pull one over on me. And the other thing unsaid was that I had alternatives. So before the record hit, they knew that I could go away and do something else. And after the record hit, they knew I had money that I wasn't wasting. You know what I mean? So to go to now to bring pain into the conversation, at that point, I'm not taking beats from people and not knowing where samples are coming from or whatever, because they could say, oh, we'll wait, cease and desist or whatever. I have my Bust a Move money. Any sample and any sample dispute that comes after that, said, okay, that song may not have made money, but you got money from other songs you've made, and you're a big famous guy and you stole our record, so we want some of that. I wasn't having that. So that's, so I pissed off some of my DJ friends that want to make tracks for me, but it kind of is what it is.
Sorry to bring this up, but is that what happened with the Van Halen sample on the Tone Loc record? Did they try coming after you?
I mean, there was settlement. All right. I didn't sign anything for this, but it's just not the greatest form to go into it. But a lot of those, pre 3 Feet High and Rising and all samples cleared and that ilk or that period, deals were getting done for cash. If you went up to a rock band and said, I'll give you $10,000 flat just to use this record, use this sample in my record, nobody knows about masters. Nobody knows about publishing. Here's 10 grand. Here's 20 grand up front. Sign this. They sign it and that's done. They literally have signed an artist deal with you as a flat fee to take the sample. That happened a lot. Just saying.
So what I think is dope about what you just said is, like, although many things have changed about the music industry, the one thing that's consistent is that if you are educated and you understand the business, you can move in a way to protect yourself and make yourself a lot more money than if you didn't have the information. And that's exactly why we started the Music Entrepreneur Club, because, we all have experience in it. We're living it day to day. So we're just passing on information to these young folks so that they can navigate it in the same way that you were able to do it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's human nature. If you're that kind of person to take advantage of somebody, you're looking for somebody who's desperate, looking for somebody that doesn't have alternatives, doesn't have choices, doesn't have, another direction to go. And I was the antithesis of that from when I first got in. But then I also, learned that a lot of times it's the deals you don't do as opposed to the deals you do, that you'll be probably more thankful for. So I may have missed out on some opportunities by being conservative, but there's a lot more things that I could do because I didn't get myself tied up into something that I didn't want to be in.
Yeah. What is today's generation missing from, the time and experience and the positivity of like the way hip hop was, in the 80s, 90s? What are give them a little insight on what they're missing today.
Well, it can even go down, if you go down to the music production part of it, it's so easy to get beats that, like, for me, if I find a loop and and I'm using an MPC 60, I'm using an old sampler, I have to commit to that loop to say, okay, this is how I want to chop it. This is how I want to work with it. This is the hook I want to write to it. The music comes so quickly now that whether it's successful or not, if you didn't put a lot of time into it overall, I'm talking soup to nuts, from the first pen stroke to mastering. If that whole thing takes place in a short period of time, then it doesn't really matter. And you're not really making music for people to listen to 5-10 years down the line. Every record that I was making, I mean, when the Grammy I won was the second overall rap Grammy, and it was the first televised Grammy. So people were still talking about rap like rap wouldn't be there. It would be disco. Like, okay, we got a couple of disco awards and it'll go away. That's the way it was spoken about. So, and also I had an alternative. I could have gone and done something else. So I'm like, okay, let me show that this is the reason why I'm not working this 9-to-5 job. I'm going to put everything I can in every record I make. And even now, it takes me a long time. I'm slow, but I'm good. Like, if you look at my catalog, I make more money. How can I say it? There's a higher percentage of songs in my catalog that have generated income from licensing than 95% of the people I know. Most of the people will have 1,000 songs and maybe have 10 to 15 that have made money. And I'll have 200 to 300 and I'll have 60, 70 that have made money.
How does that compare with you saying that you wrote Bust a Move in like an hour and a half and things like that? It's like the writing is fast, but the process of making it is slow. Is that what you're saying? No.
All right. The writing is fast at 20 years old after your homework in college, and you get to do something that a professor's not telling you to do, and every word you write, comes out the way it comes out. Once that happens, the writing is painstaking because you're like, oh man, in 90 minutes, I can make another one that changes my life. And you burden the back of your head with that. So I could never write something that quickly now. I think about it too much. I'm literally going over every syllable, every rhyme scheme, breaking out rhyme and dictionaries. Everything has to be perfect now. So that's what I'm saying. That's the care that I put in. I make each record as if it's my last. When I wrote Bust a Move, I knew I had a bunch of records ahead of me, and I'm like, oh, this sounds different. Tone just came off of being damn near quadruple platinum. Let's see what I can come up with. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. The writing process at 20 and the writing process at 57 are different.
Well, can I ask then, because looking at the producers that worked on your first few albums, I mean, there are legends on there.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Dust Brothers were on there. So it was a very different process, and you've seen it at every step of the way from its inception to now, where you can just make a beat quite easily, at the same quality as what it would have taken, because you said there's so much commitment involved in the analog gear, and there is, that's honestly why I like, I have an idea and I can get it off very quickly with a MIDI controller. What was that process like then? You would write to beats, or you would write
really quick? Yes. Okay. I'll tell you. Okay. Wild Thing, Funky Comedina, they give me the beats. They say they want it for Tone. I bitch and moan. I'm like, oh, and then I go ahead and do it. And it comes quickly. They make the edits go. Bust a Move, they give me the track. I write to it. and literally like 90 minutes and then done. The interesting thing, Know How was written to a beat that I did at 112 beats per minute. And this is directly to Payne. Payne will appreciate this totally. Know How was written to a beat that I made at 112 beats per minute. They gave the track to the Dust Brothers and they came with the sample filled stuff at 117 beats a minute. That's why the rhyme is so fast. If they had originally given me that track, I wouldn't have done that cadence. So I didn't perform that record for 20 years because it felt like a damn obstacle course every time I would do it. But then I got so good at performing, and then I went to Australia and they were like, well, you have to do Know How over here. And so I got good at it and I still do it in my show. And now it's like, I kind of get it. But that 5 BPM jump, quick story. I have a really good friend, DJ Debonair. Shout out to DJ Debonair. He was hosting and DJing a club in Nashville. And he said one of his, life dreams or hopes was to DJ behind me when I get up and do a few songs, and he DJ for me. I'm like, cool. So we start rocking. Know How's his favorite record. He puts the track on and I'm starting to go with it. I go through the first verse and I know it's too fast. Me with the DJ in mind, I go back and I take the pitch and I slow the pitch down so that I see green, so that I know it's normal. And he's like, man, I'm just trying to, get the crowd hype. I'm like, do you want me to run around the building while I do the record? Because I could feel 123 trying to do these 112 lyrics. So yeah, that a lot of my music appreciation comes from that. But from then, I to get my record deal, I read about 5 verses over the phone, all of which ended up on Stone Cold Rhyming. So I would have verses that were kind of mid-tempo, and I would just make records out of them, and none of them had hooks. I would just end the verse and then say the hook. But there were no hooks written. It would just be they put in more instruments. So I let her know my name is Young, got more rhymes. Even Know How, but Know How was somewhat to the track and written as 3 verses, but a lot of them were just like 3 separate verses, 16s of, Young MC saying how great he was. And then they gave me beats and kind of went with it. Then we did some conceptual stuff, like Nonstop was conceptual. Got more rhymes. I Come Off was conceptual. Pick Up the Pace, Bust a Move. And then I learned to become a songwriter, and I was making more conceptual stuff. Even the braggadocious stuff was conceptual going forward from that.
So it was still kind of similar to how it is now, where, a lot of artists are. I think it's a misunderstanding, because I study all kinds of music, and I know there were pop records and rock records that were even inspired by instrumentals back then.
Sure.
Which we think nowadays that's such a modern concept, make a beat in a home studio and deliver it to an artist. And back then everyone was enmeshed in the process all at the same time, but there was a lot of variation back then.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, to me, When I Get You Alone by Robin Thicke is probably one of the best uses of, I wouldn't even say a sample, because he just literally played the record and sang over it. But as a guy that comes up with melodies, it's one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. Like, I can't believe that that's not his biggest record. So stuff like that inspires me in terms of saying, okay, this can be what you can do creatively, because that's over an instrumental. There's a Chris Brown song. He sang a track called 5 Hours by Dioro. I think it's a house track, and he did a vocal over the top of it. And I was so accustomed to the track as an instrumental that I didn't want to hear anybody singing over the top of it. You know what I mean? So you can get inspired by that. A lot of times I'll hear a loop, or I'll hear something in a song, a riff or something, and that'll inspire something totally different, something left. I'll come up with a phrase or a hook, or even just a melody line that I can loop over, play and loop over and go and make that happen. So